Hey guys, it's Shay again, and I'm making another video that's very similar to the one that I put out already about paid GMing. And very much like that one, I recently saw a post in a group I'm in bringing up assumptions they had about solo tabletop role-playing games. And my cat is in the picture, but that's okay. They wanted people in that group to respond to those assumptions. I don't want to link it here because I don't want to risk sending those people any unnecessary heat or hate or whatever. I don't know if that's something that would even happen or something I need to be concerned about. But I have no interest in causing drama. I just want to have an opportunity to talk about this because it's something that I have opinions about. And the people who posted about it originally seemed to imply that the topic is impenetrable to delve into and very hard to ask questions, which I found interesting because I know there will always be gatekeepers in certain communities. But as someone who is getting into solo TTRPGs and who has a friend who is very into this kind of scene, who has been teaching me the ins and outs, and who I've made a few at this point. That's not the experience that I had. Not necessarily discounting their experience, but just quickly before making this video, I did do a very basic amount of my own research, and I found some useful tools, like Jenny D's video on solo D&D that she put out. I also found a Dicebreaker article about it. I found a guide from Story Engine Deck about it that is kind of like exclusively for the wary writer and lonely gamer. And I know that there's also a subreddit just for solo role-playing, and there's a thread right on there for beginners. So there's a lot of people who are answering a lot of questions and posting really useful stuff for beginners. If you look for this information, I found all these in less than 50 minutes. They talk about why you might want to try solo games. They go into useful tools like Mystic and Oracle and what they are. They go into more details on GM emulators and how to play with them, generally how to play solo games, and they have game recommendations, like 1,000-Year Vampire and Ironsworn is something that will come up a lot. So if you're curious to learn about all of the things that I name dropped here, they're going to be linked in the description and down below. And all these places, all these people are far more experienced and knowledgeable about all this stuff than I am. So go there. There's a wealth of information and it's available if you look. But I want to talk about these specific assumptions from this thread because I've seen it from here and from a few people, and I'm sure that a lot of people share these assumptions. So I'm going to talk about some that I've heard from this thread, some that I've heard elsewhere, and my responses are going to be my personal thoughts and opinions on it. You might have different thoughts and opinions and a different perspective. There might be other people who know a lot more, and I might get things wrong or leave a lot of things out. But like my other video, I just want to hear about what you think. I want to start a conversation about it because I think it's an interesting topic within the scene in general. So first, an assumption I've seen more than once. Why not just play a video game? Why not just read a book or watch a TV show? The assumption being that all those things in playing solo TTRPGs are basically the same thing, if not the same thing. I'm looking down because I'm sitting in my living room with my little kitten on my lap so she does not cause a menace as I'm making this video at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting here in front of her cat tree because, like I said, I'm making this video at 2 a.m. and this is where the best lighting is. So anyway, for me, the barrier of entry isn't as high for some of those activities, less so for watching a TV show or reading a book. But some video games are like super expensive now. How much is it for a new AAA game? 70, 80 bucks more? I don't really play that many video games. But the solo tabletop games I'm buying and are being recommended are ranging from free to 20 bucks to like just a little bit more than that. So I have the income to drop on a game like this than a video game. I also imagine that for most of us, we are doing all those things. We are watching TV and movies and playing video games still. But there's also a reason why we do all those things and we also play normal TTRPGs, you know? Like there's a level of freedom and agency you obviously don't get from watching a TV show, from reading a book, or even from playing a video game, although I know video games can get pretty close. You can do anything. Your limit is literally your imagination, which leads us to the second assumption. If we reach for solo TTRPGs, for the same reason we reach for regular TTRPGs over other media, why not just play a regular game with a GM and players? There are two responses I have for this. First, not everyone has a group of friends ready and willing to play games with them. Maybe a lot of solo TTRPGers would love to play with a group and they just haven't found the people for that. Maybe they have found people, but not to play their preferred genre or system, or any other reason. Secondly, maybe people just like playing alone. Some people are solo players and are solitary and they prefer spending time on their own, but they also love these games. Maybe they struggle with the play style of other GMs and players. Maybe they are very particular around how they enjoy playing a game. Maybe they have a group they play with all the time already, but they just like to have time for themselves. Maybe it's relaxing for them and they can go at their own pace. All of these are valid reasons for playing solo games, and if none of them resonate with you, that's okay. Solo gaming doesn't have to be for everyone. If you find that the big reason that you want to play these games is the social aspect and working with other players, that's fine that you feel that way. But there's an alternative to people who still like playing these games, but also like playing alone. Sweet. Oh. Another assumption, solo TTRPGs are boring and a lot of work because you have to act like the GM and a player, and so you always know where the story is going. For some people, it will be boring and it will feel that way no matter what you do. However, for the rest of us, that's where GM emulators and things of that nature come in. GM emulators are tools that you can use to circumvent this problem. Personally, I've experienced playing a game and at the start having a very strong idea of the direction it was going and how it was going to end, and I felt certain that that was the case. But with whatever tools I had, that idea was no longer possible, and I ended up with a very different direction and ending than I had predicted. And it didn't matter that I was playing as both GM and player. Next, I want to talk about the assumption that solo role-playing games are just creative writing prompts or exercises with extra bits to it. I think this is the assumption that a lot of people are going to have different ideas and answers to. There's a little bit of nuance and subjectivity here. As some people in the original thread pointed out, it depends on your definition of creative exercise. And to me, if people see it as a creative writing exercise, I'm personally fine with it because I don't see that as a bad thing. I'm personally an aspiring writer, so I'm all about stuff like that. You can interpret it as such, but also, as a friend pointed out, regular D&D around a table could be interpreted as an improv exercise. Why not? If that's what you want to use it for and that's what you think of it, that seems like it could be useful for a lot of people. At the same time, specifically saying something like it's just implies negativity and that it's lesser or less valid, which doesn't need to be in the case if that's the way that you look at it. Additionally, there are a lot of types of different solo games and they have their own styles and mechanics, and not all of them are through writing, and not all of them are with prompts. There are also games like 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, and I did write out my response. There are prompts in that game, but there's also a lot more to the game than writing prompts with extra bits. The extra bits are a significant part of the game. There's a resource management aspect that really gamified it when I was playing, and it made it a lot of fun. It actually felt like a game. It didn't feel like a writing exercise. I also wrote shorter responses and played at a fast pace, which could have also added to the feeling of playing a game. And the last assumption I want to talk about today is the assumption that solo TTRPGs are all D&D style medieval fantasy, and if it's not, it's a coat of paint that disguises the classic D&D vibe under things like superheroes or spies. This, I'm going to come right out and say, is definitely not the case. And I think you could really debunk that pretty easily with some quick look-throughs with the available games and systems that are here already. I've personally played games that took place in contemporary places, that don't use D&D troops or D&D names, and there are all of those games out there. I've brought it up a lot already, but 1,000-Year-Old Vampire might be fantasy, and D&D also has vampires, but the game spans centuries. It focuses on themes of memory, morality, and eternity, and it has a very different vibe from classic D&D story-wise and mechanically, in my opinion. My close friend has a Washu game that she created that steps out of historical Western tropes that are the foundation of a lot of D&D and into Eastern Chinese culture. She also made a game that I made my first stream on here about, streaming and trying to gain viewers. I recently released a game with her that's all about 80s and 90s slasher movies that's meant to scare you and have more similarities with the slasher genre than any genre in D&D. And I will shamelessly link all of those here in case you want to get the vibe and see how not D&D like it was. Again, I'm not a solo game expert, but I did want to share my thoughts. If you wanted to share your thoughts, please do, and we can discuss it a little bit more. I like kind of getting thoughts that I had in my head out there, and I'd love to talk about it more. Please look at some of the people I've linked. Their content is much better than mine, and maybe I'll do another video sometime. Maybe it'll be another rant about some post that I've seen. Or maybe I won't. Bye.